Hello, everyone. This is Home to Home Prayer Talks with
Teresa.
and Jessica. Today, we're so excited to be talking about coveting our prayers during this time.
Yes, that is correct. And we're so honored to have Rosa Kelly with us today. Hi, Rosa.
Praise the Lord. Good to see you this morning.
So my family has known Rosa and her family for about 10 or so years. And have you ever had that time where you've met someone and you've instantly connected with them spiritually? This is the family that we have connected with spiritually. And so I am very, very blessed to have Rosa on the show with us and as we talk about prayer today.
And I am very honored that you've even asked. It is a privilege to share things in our life, not just with you. I'm so proud of this happening. I know that I forward your video, so hoping it'll reach a lot of people and just help during the season.
Thank you so much, Rosa. So we're just going to go right ahead. And I wanted to ask you, why is it important to covet our prayers, especially in this time?
During this time especially, I did take the question, and you have to kind of dissect it, like, what does coveting actually mean? It's to yearn for it, or to possess it, or I have to have it, a desire. It's what your heart is set on. So when you put prayer and covet, it's what your heart is set on. Initially, though, when I asked myself that question, the first thing I thought is, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you cover that precious time? But then right away, you kind of have to check yourself. And it just took me back, like way to like this, the most simplest form. If you don't covet your prayer time, something else will.
Mm-hmm.
That time will be taken, and because of the life that we're living in, you don't even realize it, but the enemy has a way at the end of the day to tell you, you know what, you didn't get your prayer time today. He's really quick to it. So you have to covet it above all things to get it done. It has to be special to you.
So, Rosa, how do you get into that mindset to be intentional?
Everyone's different. But with everything else that I do, if you can do a to-do list about your daily cleaning, then you can put that at the top of the list. Everything starts in your mind. And yeah. I know I can't speak for men because I don't want to ask. But before my alarm even goes off, I've already set my day most times.
Yes.
So, I don't even go get coffee because I'll go down there and see the dishes, see the floor, laundry basket. So I just set that time. You just have to get up and just do that. Know that that is your priority. It has to be intentional. We're intentional with him when we have needs, but when we don't have needs, it kind of just goes on, I'll get to it. And believe me, the enemy already knows that about you. If you already get started with something else, you're going to finish that something else and find another something else. So it just has to be intentional. Go do your thing and then find your spot. Right now, I'm in my loft. This is my quiet time. The sun comes in my window. Everybody else is either not here, or if it's early, because I do like to have that morning manna, that's usually my time. Everybody's usually just sleeping, and it's just very peaceful. So you have to be intentional about it. That's not a gift. That's almost like God saying, I'm here when you get here.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's me, and I know that everybody's different.
No, that's awesome. It sounds like it's important for us to know our personalities, know our and then set ourselves up for the best time to pray.
Yes.
Put God in as a priority.
Yeah. And believe me, when you do that, he definitely You know, if you have like this mentality of, I'm going to go seize the day, you put God first and you will get so much more accomplished than what you thought.
Right.
Every time, every time. I know that even through this season that we're going through with this pandemic, um, to me, even through my own sickness, and I apologize because I did write it out, but I didn't want to miss not saying something. Even through my own sickness, it's always felt like the Lord, this has been going on for over 40 days, you know, and I've always asked why. That's my personality. Lord, I know that, you know that things are happening. There is an actual sickness. It's not in our minds. Some people are making it through it. Some people aren't. And I've always been the one to ask, what are you trying to tell us? And right away in my spirit, and I think I've even shared this with Teresa before, just in our conversation, it's almost like God hit a global reset button. Okay, I know that you guys were trying before, but now I took away the majority of your busyness. You're in your own home now. Now what? Well, the now what is that we filled it with projects.
Right.
Doing everything that we didn't have time for before. And now here we are again.
Mm-hmm.
So take it back a few days. He gave us another 30 days. And we really need to use this time for him.
Right.
And then, I mean, it's almost like you're giving him 10% and you got the whole 90.
Mhm.
Give him your prayer time, your reading, and let him guide the rest of your day, your other 90%, but it's a frame of mind, and we have to overcome our flesh to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And that sometimes can be very difficult, especially for moms. If you have small kids, you're chasing them and praying at the same time, and God does honor that, because I have raised mine. It's like, Lord, she was yours first. But it is a frame of mind, and you just have to be intentional about your time. If it's worth it to you, then you're going to do it. Yeah.
Mhm. So you were talking about your sickness.
Yes. My husband and I were diagnosed with the COVID-19 virus. Of course, we got the symptoms and we were in the hospital way before we even got the results. There's 3 of us living here, my husband and I and my daughter, Mickey. All of us had different symptoms, but we already knew COVID, was already out there. So right away, I separated us. I took the top floor, Mickey took the main floor, and my husband took the basement. Because what I was hearing from other people, friends, that were, and this is before we all got quarantined to our homes, is that if you already had it and you went around another person who had it, who had different symptoms, you would now start showing those symptoms as well. It just kept mutating. So I just split us up. And we were like that for about 5 or 6 days before my husband came up and said, we need to go to the hospital. I would try my best. Mine showed up as a respiratory issue. So I couldn't stand for a long time. I couldn't walk for a long time. So while I was sick, I did go downstairs and try to make a meal that we can eat all day, whatever it was. And then we would just go eat at a different time. But Mickey had no appetite. And my husband couldn't keep anything down, not even water. So we were pretty bad by the time Layman said, we got to go. He had gotten himself so dehydrated because he couldn't drink anything. He could, but it would come right back up before it even digested. It wouldn't even make it down. He started coughing up blood. So that was it for us, because some people were shown that, they were just at home, just going through it instead of going to the emergency room. And some people that did go to the emergency room got sent home, depending on their symptoms. But he was bleeding, so we took off. And it didn't dawn on me that that might have been the only time I saw my husband,
Right.
you know, or my kids.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't say goodbye. It was like a hospital visit. Mentally, you're just kind of like, my husband's sick. You know, on the flip side of that, when we came in, the nurse looked at me and she's like, oh yeah, there's no visitors in here. I was like, I'm not a visitor. We're both coming in. And I guess that's the first time a husband and wife had to be admitted. But again, I wasn't thinking anything about that until after they took Layman back. And, you know, your mind starts wandering back to all the news that you had heard. You know, what if one of us doesn't make it? You know, what was the last thing I told my husband? You know, and it never dawned on us that we were going to be in separate rooms. You know, when we did make it up, you know, there was like a triage room. Then there was an emergency room where it was behind a closed door, where they kind of started all the liquids, and then they took you to your room. And Layman was about 15 to 20 minutes ahead of me in that process. While we were in that room, you know, I could hear different stuff going on. I was like, you know what? I need some water. I mean, I was starting to like really feel sick with everything they were pumping in me. And they got it. And I asked that nurse, I need to know how my husband is doing. And I think she thought that he was in the hospital for other reasons prior to the COVID. And she's like, oh yeah, no problem. You know, what room is he in? I'm like, well, he came in like 15 minutes before I did. She's like, with the COVID? And, you know, that started a whole thing. I was like, I really don't think he's not acknowledging a whole lot of things. He was kind of out of it. His name is Rosa Kelly, and I just need updates on him. Well, those nurses didn't translate that when we went upstairs. And so it took like 3 hours before someone came in and actually realized, oh yeah, her husband's in, you know, because Layman he couldn't do anything. You know, I couldn't FaceTime him. You know, they just had him down. And that was difficult. So everything that was happening to me, I couldn't share it with him because he was out of it. You know, the nurses would go in, but then they would tell me, we did tell your husband what you're going through over here, but he's still in and out. So I think I don't want to say my breaking point, even though I think it was that spiritually for me, because I was kind of out of it too. So taking that back just a second to the first question, it's almost like if we call ourselves brothers and sisters, I'm depending on you to have your prayer time so that when I go through times like this and I can't go to God for myself, I know that I have brothers and sisters doing it for me. That's another reason why you should cover that time, because it's not just about you.
That's right.
Because those first 3 days, I mean, all I can get out was Jesus. And I know that that's sufficient. But knowing that the saints were praying for me, I didn't lose my strength spiritually. You know, my flesh was weak. So 2.5 days in, a doctor actually came into the room. This was abnormal because the nurses and everybody else that was coming in either to draw blood or do an x-ray, they had to limit their exposure to you. So they would just come in, do what they got to do and leave. So of course, now I'm looking at this doctor and he's walking into the room. And I'm already staring at him, you know, wondering what he's going to say. And he told me, he goes, we can't get your breathing under control. You know, your heart's under a lot of stress. You're not breathing to your full capacity, you know, and that was with oxygen. I wasn't breathing to my, and my blood pressure just wasn't even where it should have been. And he pretty much just straight asked me, without warning, do you have a living will and testament?